You had a article up with like a lot of candidates, all uh, interesting in their own ways, but has in your mind that coaching search narrowed a little bit?
Yeah, I think so. First of all, Fred, sorry to hear about your gout.
Thank you,
That's
thank you, thank you. Your prayers are most welcome. Thank you.
yeah, in talking to people around the league, I hadn't really heard the Mitch Love name since really the last time the Bruins had a coaching search when he was a finalist when Monty got the job. So was kind of surprised to see that name out there. But in talking to some people since, I wrote that story, which kind of had a Boston flavor to it. So I'm not sure, Mitch Love would have fit in there, but yeah, he's definitely in the mix now, and I think hearing a lot more reports that Marco Sturm, the former Bruin, is getting serious consideration. And those guys both fit the kind of the itinerary that Don Sweeney was looking for. Maybe not necessarily a head coach, but definitely NHL experience.
Uh,
So those guys definitely fall into that category.
okay, so Mitch Love handled the defense with the Capitals.
Yep,
Okay,
he
so
did.
what is his kind of background and what about him is appealing? I hadn't heard his name either.
Yeah, so he worked in the WHL and the AHL with Calgary before Spencer Carberry hired him last year when he took over the Capitals. And I think he's a defensive-minded coach. He was a defenseman in his career. He never made it to the NHL, but he did play in the AHL for a bit, including a stint with the Lowell Lock Monsters, who coincidentally, when he was there, Joe Sacco was the assistant coach on that team. So kind of a defensive-minded coach. And I think Marco Sturm, despite him being a forward, was also brought up in the defensive system with the LA Kings. So both of those guys kind of have a defensive pedigree, even though only one played defense and one played forward in the NHL.
You're seeing a lot of reports that Jay Woodcroft, the former Edmonton head coach, is in as well. I saw one report that he might even be the favorite. Have you heard something like that?
Not till yesterday that I heard it. It's funny that Jay Woodcroft, after he had that really terrible start with Edmonton last season, kind of fell off the coaching radar. Like he hasn't been really, mentioned in a lot of jobs openings, and we all know how many job openings there are in the NHL on a yearly basis. There's a lot, and I hadn't heard his name linked with anyone. So that name kind of took me by surprise. But we'll see. He's another guy that's he's on the younger side. He's got NHL experience, obviously, as a head coach. It didn't end well in Edmonton, so we'll see. He surprised me, John.
It's kind of, it seems not necessarily a trend in the NHL, but that's one thing that these three guys we're talking about all have in common. They're all in their low to mid 40s, and it seems like that's by design here, but that doesn't seem to necessarily be a trend around the National Hockey League.
Yeah, no, I think you're looking for that guy that can be a disciplinarian, but can also relate to the younger generation, right? And you have to coach that generation a little younger than you would have the older guys. So I think he's trying to, it's a tough position to come into because this team doesn't have the leadership in the locker room that it's had in the past few years. Pasternak and McAvoy are alternate captains, but a lot of like the secondary layer of leaders that this team has had in the past, the Charlie Coyles, those kind of guys, Kevin Shattenkirk last year. They're searching for those guys this year, and that's going to be up to the coach to kind of find those voices in that locker room and let them know that it's okay to be, vocal, even if you're a young player, you can still be a leader. So, I think those guys are young enough to kind of get that dynamic.
How wary should any of these candidates be, Jim, in terms of taking the job? When Cam Neely was asked about it, or I can't remember if it was Cam or Sweeney who said kind of dismissed it like, you kidding? Come coach an original six team in Boston? Yeah, I think everyone's going to pick up the phone. I'd have some trepidation based on how they've treated the last couple of coaches, and what do you think? How should these guys be thinking about the job?
Yeah, I think because there's so few of those positions, right? That if you get a guy that wants to be a head coach, I don't think he's going to be, worried about the fact that this is the fourth coach in 4 years. He just wants his chance to prove himself. I think it was a big step that the Bruins extended Sweeney this year for 2 more years, meaning he's got 3 years on the book, so now he can hire a coach for at least that term. I don't think many coaches in the league would take a deal for less than 3 years. So that kind of aligns properly. I know Monty was a bit different. His situation was different. He got the 2-year deal when he first came in. But yeah, I think they've got that in place. And I know Don was kind of dismissive of that question at the end of the year press conference, but maybe he could have taken a different kind of tact. But I think the fact remains, if you're reaching out, if you're the Bruins or any team in the NHL, if you're reaching out to coaching candidates, they're going to want to come here unless they're, in a firmly established place and are in a line of succession wherever they are right presently.
And what would be your wish in terms of the pedigree for a coach right now? Should it be somebody that leans toward being a player's coach? Should it be someone who's more of a disciplinarian? Should it be somebody with new ideas and outside of the norm? Because Fred mentioned this earlier, and weeks ago, just talking about just somebody with some new ideas. It seems obvious and easy to pick somebody who's established a mode of operation that everyone's going to be comfortable with. What do you think is the best course?
Yeah, I thought a guy that kind of stood out to me early in the process was Misha Donskov, for the assistant for the Stars. And I don't know if the fact that the Stars have been on a longer run are kind of hampering his ability to come and talk to Don.
He's going to be available real soon, Jim.
Yeah, you would think after watching last night's game,
Yeah.
right? So maybe he jumps in late this week and gets an in-person interview. Obviously, he knows Don from the Four Nations and from being in different spots in the league. But kind of doing a dive on him, he seemed like a unique personality and a guy that works really well one-on-one with guys. And reading a story that Logan Stankoven, who's now with the Hurricanes, he talked to him about how he was able to break down game plans quickly and keep guys' attention. And I thought he kind of had that, for lack of a better term, kind of, analytical geek side, but also jock hockey side. And I thought that would have been a good mix for this team going forward. So I really thought his name was, when I first heard about him, that he might be a perfect candidate because he has NHL experience, hasn't been a head coach, so he can kind of grow into that role. But like I said, he hasn't been able to really come in and talk because the Stars have been on the run that they've been on.
While we have you here, Jim, I wanted to ask you about Mitch Marner and free agency. I know free agency is about a month away from now, but we've talked a little bit here on the show about, Mitch Marner. Should the Bruins go after him and use a lot of cap space to chase him, or is there another plan of attack?
Yeah, I really like his game and watching him up close. He's a very solid 200-foot player. He runs the power play from the quarterback spot. I mean, he did it so effectively that the Maple Leafs this year used five forwards on the power play most of the season. So he's there. He plays. He's an elite penalty killer. Very fast, very heady. I think he'd fit in well here because he's kind of that. He's not in a leadership role per se, but he could kind of get that when he comes to Boston. Now, I know he's had his struggles in the postseason, but everybody in that Maple Leaf jersey has. So I don't know if I'd break the bank and give him $14 million, but you're talking $10, $11 million. I think Mitch Marner would be a really good fit here.
Is that can you pay him more than you would be paying Pasternak and get away with it if you're the Bruins?
I don't think Pasta has that kind of ego, at least with us in dealing with him. But maybe he does go to them and say, "Hey, maybe you can readjust me because I am the best player in this team and one of the best in the league." But I think for the most part, like NHL guys get what they get, and then the market gets reset every year. And a lot of times, unless it's if they give Marner 14 and he's $3 million ahead of what Pasta's getting, then I think you might have a problem. But if it's relatively close, I think guys realize, the salary cap goes up, so salaries go up, and you get what you get at the time of the cap.
Wouldn't you also, he'd want to win, I would think. He wouldn't want to be on a terrible team. Marner said that it was this weird list of teams. It was like Vegas, Florida, Detroit, and Chicago, are where he wanted to go. I don't. It seems so random. I don't put anything into that. In fact, two of those teams couldn't even get him. So do you take any stock in that?
No, I think he's probably just posturing. I think it comes down to July 1st comes, and it's generally the team that offers the most money is the team that gets the player, right? I mean, I guess when I first heard Vegas and Florida, I said, "Oh, he wants to go to a winner." But then, Chicago's still a ways away from winning, and
Detroit's no better than Boston.
I don't want to sell Fred and Hardy here, but Detroit's probably not the best destination right now either because they haven't been able to get out in a while.
No. Listen. I like the Bruins more than I like the Red Wings. The Red Wings are no closer to anything than the Bruins are. If not, they might be further away. If you like that clip, check out more videos from Toucher and Hardy here. For more Bruins analysis and opinion, hit this playlist. And for all the latest from the Sports Hub, download the app at 985thesportshub.com.